My daughter, stop everything you are doing right now. Stop the scrolling. Stop the worry. Stop the mental rehearsal of everything that has not worked out yet. Stop the quiet arithmetic of how much longer you can hold on before the faith starts to crack. I need you to stop, because what I am about to say is not a passage of scripture you've heard 100 times and filed away. It is a live transmission from the throne room of heaven, and it is addressed to you specifically by name in this exact moment of your life. I have issued a red alert over your life, and I need you to understand what that means before fear steps in and rewrites the message. Because here is what a red alert in heaven does not mean. It does not mean danger. It does not mean you have done something wrong. It does not mean the enemy is advancing. It does not mean your time is running out, or your window is closing, or the blessing you have been standing on is being revoked. A red alert in the kingdom of heaven is not what the world has trained you to think it is. A red alert in heaven is not a warning. It is an announcement. When I issue a red alert over a life, it means one thing. It means something so significant is about to move that heaven itself had to mark it. It means I have assigned the highest level of attention to your address, to your name, to the assignment over your life. It means the blessing that has been in the final stages of preparation has now crossed the threshold into the final stage before arrival. It means the angels assigned to your life have been placed on active duty, not on standby, not on watch. On active, forward-moving, door-opening, wall-breaking, path-clearing duty. I do not issue red alerts lightly. I do not mark a life with this level of heaven's attention for ordinary movement. A red alert is the language of heaven for something irreversible, something that cannot be undone, called back, or delayed once it is in motion. And what I have put in motion over your life is exactly that, irreversible, already moving, already past the point of return. You have been feeling something pressing at the edges of your life, something building underneath the surface that you cannot quite name. You have felt urgency that you could not attach to a reason. You have felt restlessness that did not match your circumstances. You have felt something enormous pressing against the inside of your situation, the way a storm feels in the air before the first drop of rain. That feeling is correct. What you are sensing is not anxiety about something going wrong. What you are sensing is the displacement of air that happens when something enormous is moving toward you at speed. I am that something. The blessing I have prepared for you is that something. And it is not moving slowly. It has been moving steadily through every season you thought was silence. Every year you thought was stagnation. Every moment you thought was stillness. It has been moving through your faithfulness on the days when faith cost you everything. It has been moving through your prayers in the small hours of the morning when no one else was awake. It has been moving through every quiet act of obedience, and every moment you chose to believe when believing was the harder choice. All of that forward movement was always in motion. You just could not see it from where you were standing. I issued the red alert because the arrival is close, not theoretical, not eventual, not in a season. You will need more faith to survive before you see it. Close. And I want to talk to you about what close feels like, because I think you have been misreading the signals. Close does not always feel like peace. Close does not always feel like clarity or warm confirmation, or the kind of spiritual stillness that you see described in certain scriptures. Sometimes close feels like your skin does not quite fit anymore. Sometimes close feels like a low electrical hum in the background of your days, a vibration you cannot locate the source of but cannot ignore. Sometimes close feels like waking up in the middle of the night with your heart beating faster than the night warrants, and lying there in the dark knowing something is on the edge of happening but not knowing what. Sometimes close feels like everything around you is on the verge of rearranging itself, and the disorientation of that impending shift is what you have been experiencing as unease. If any of that is true for you, then you are already standing at the edge of what I have been building toward. The unease is not a warning sign. It is the weather system that precedes the shift, the displacement of pressure that tells you the atmosphere is changing. When a front moves in, the air changes before the rain comes. You can feel it. You can smell it. Everything in your body knows something is arriving even when the sky still looks the same. That is where you are standing. The sky may still look the same to you, but the air has already changed. Type Amen if you feel this is for you, my daughter. I need to speak to you about something that has been pressing against your life from outside, something that you have felt but perhaps could not name, a resistance that you experienced, not as a wall of your own construction, but as a wall that was built while you were looking the other way. A weight that was not placed there by your own choices, but by someone who stood close enough to understand your potential and chose to do something very specific with that understanding. There is a person. I will not name them the way accusation names things. I will simply describe what they did, and you will recognize it, because your spirit has known for longer than your mind has permitted itself to admit. This person positioned themselves close to you, close enough to feel the warmth of your light, close enough to benefit from the energy you carry, close enough to call themselves part of your circle, part of your story, part of your life. And they used that proximity not to amplify you, but to manage you. Every time you were in a room with people who needed to understand your capacity, they were already there first, already speaking, already painting a picture, not a lie. Never a lie that could be identified and confronted, but a version of you. A version that was carefully edited, a version that was presented at just enough below your full height to keep the ceiling above you at a level they could live with. They became the curator of how others understood your potential, and they curated it with a consistent and quiet generosity toward themselves. When they spoke of your gifts in rooms you were not in, there was always an adjoining sentence, always a qualification, always a but, always a she just needs to, or she is still working on, or once she gets past. Never an outright diminishment. Always the kind of managed truth that kept them feeling relevant, feeling necessary, feeling like the person who understood you better than you understood yourself. They were not lying, they were framing. And the difference between a lie and a careful frame is that one can be caught and the other never can. You felt this. You felt it in the way certain rooms responded to you before you could say a word, as if someone had arrived before you and preset the temperature. You felt it in the way certain opportunities moved close and then veered away at the last moment, as if someone had made a call. You felt it in the way your name was said in certain conversations, a specific energy attached to it that did not match who you knew yourself to be. You felt the wall. Now you know what built it, and there is more. They spoke agreement to your face and doubt behind your back. Not the kind of doubt that announces itself, the kind that plants a seed. In the moments when your name came up in conversations that could have advanced your life, they were careful, always present, always ready with the version of your story that kept them safe by comparison, not a knife, a dimmer switch, and they kept it turned just low enough that you kept questioning your own brightness rather than questioning the hand on the switch. Then something changed. You began to move, not loudly, not with announcement, but something in you shifted, and the momentum of your life began to accelerate in ways that could not be managed by careful words anymore. And when your breakthrough began to reach a speed that exceeded their ability to contain it, they became quiet, not the quiet of peace, not the quiet of someone stepping aside in joy, the specific quiet of someone calculating. You noticed the silence. You felt something different in the space they once occupied. That silence was not withdrawal, it was strategy. They had moved from shaping your story to studying your movement, trying to understand whether there was still a handle they could use to slow what they could no longer stop. There was not, because what I am doing in your life cannot be managed by a human hand. What I am releasing over you was not subject to their approval and is not vulnerable to their strategy. They were never the gatekeeper they believed themselves to be. They were a test of your consistency, and you passed without knowing you were being graded. My daughter, stay close to what I am building here. Press the follow button below. Not for a notification, but because the messages sent through this place are written for daughters whose names I already know. Yours is on the list. Do not miss what comes next. My daughter, I want to speak to the exhaustion you have been feeling, not just physical tiredness, though that has been real. I mean the deeper depletion, the kind that comes from feeling like you are constantly pouring out, and the level is never replenishing the way it should. The kind that comes from being present in your own life but feeling, at the edges, slightly out of phase with it, as if you are watching yourself from one step outside your own experience. The kind that comes from conversations that used to satisfy you no longer doing so. From spaces that used to feel like home now feeling slightly too small, slightly too familiar, slightly not quite right anymore. I know you have wondered what that means. I know you have asked yourself whether something is wrong, whether you are losing your gratitude, whether you are being ungrateful for the life you have, whether you have drifted from something important, or lost your center, or moved away from the faith that used to anchor you so easily. I need you to hear the truth about what is actually happening. Your spirit is not breaking down. It is growing up. Growth does not feel like power when it first arrives. It does not come with clarity or ease or the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly where they are going. Growth feels like pressure. Growth feels like the walls of the space you have been living in getting closer, the ceiling getting lower, the room that used to hold everything you needed becoming something that fits you less and less with each passing month. The things that once satisfied you no longer do because your spirit has grown past the size those things were designed for. That is not ingratitude. That is expansion. Type I receive this now, not tomorrow. Now, the people who are feeling further away are not people you have lost love for. Your frequency has changed. The channel your life is broadcasting on has shifted, and the people who could only receive you on the old frequency are experiencing what feels to them like distance, and what feels to you like growing apart. They are not disappearing from your life because I am punishing them, or because you have become too good for them. They are being filtered out of a season that no longer has room for them. What is coming into your life requires space, and space is being made, not by your effort, not by your decision, by the simple and inevitable reality that a life at a new elevation cannot carry forward everything that belonged to a previous one. The air is thinner at altitude. Not everyone can breathe where you are headed. The things that no longer fit you are releasing themselves. Habits that once felt comfortable are becoming uncomfortable. Patterns that once felt like home are beginning to feel like constriction. Relationships that once felt like belonging are beginning to feel like maintenance. This is not a spiritual failure. This is the discomfort of emergence. It is the feeling of a life that has outgrown the shell it has been living in, pressing against the interior of a space that was built for a smaller version of who you are becoming. I want you to understand something about the weariness you have been carrying, the heaviness in your chest in the morning, the effort it takes to maintain the version of yourself that fits the spaces you are currently in, the subtle exhaustion of being someone whose interior reality no longer matches the exterior presentation of their life. That tiredness is not a sign that you are losing. It is the tiredness of the last stretch, the tiredness that comes in the final mile of something enormous, the tiredness of someone who has been doing the invisible work of transformation while simultaneously maintaining all the visible requirements of a life still in transition. That tiredness is almost over. Isaiah 60:22 says, "The least of you will become 1,000. The smallest will become a mighty nation. I am the Lord, and in its time I will do this swiftly." I am doing this. Swiftly is not a comfort word in that verse. Swiftly is a promise. It means the timeline that looks slow from your side is moving at a pace that would stagger you if you could see it from mine. It means the accumulation of every season you have endured. Every quiet, faithful day, every act of forward movement in the dark, is converging on a release point that is not years away. The tiredness you are feeling is not the tiredness of a life stuck in place. It is the tiredness of a life moving at a pace the body can barely keep up with. You are not drifting, you are rising. I want to stay in this truth with you for a moment, because I think you have been experiencing your own expansion as something to be corrected rather than something to be honored. Every time you have noticed that something in your life no longer fits the way it used to, you have gone looking for the problem in yourself. You have asked what you did wrong. You have asked why you are not content with things that used to be enough. You have wondered if you are being ungrateful or entitled or spiritually immature. You have treated the discomfort of your own growth as evidence of a deficiency rather than what it actually is, which is evidence of a destination. Think about a seed pressing through soil in the earliest days of its growth. From inside the seed, the experience of growth is not the experience of something beautiful happening. It is the experience of the shell cracking, of darkness giving way to pressure, of moving upward against the weight of the earth above before any light is visible. The seed does not know, from the inside of that upward press, that it is becoming a flower. It only knows the pressure. It only knows the effort of moving through what resists it. You are pressing through the soil. The pressure is real. The resistance is real. The darkness of not being able to see where you are going is real. But the direction of your movement is upward. You are not losing ground. You are gaining altitude. The cracking you have been feeling is not the sound of something breaking. It is the sound of the container that was sized for a previous version of you, finally releasing its hold on who you are becoming. What you are stepping into requires a different container, and I have already made it. It has been waiting for you to grow into the size it was built for. My daughter, it is time to speak plainly about the person I described, because I do not only want you to understand what they did, I want you to understand why they did it. Because the why will protect you from repeating the pattern and from carrying a wound you were never meant to carry. They were not your enemy in the way enemies announce themselves. They were not someone who looked at you with visible hatred or competed with you in ways you could identify and respond to. They were someone who needed you. Specifically, they needed a version of you that had not yet arrived. They had built a part of their identity around being close to someone on the edge of something significant. Someone whose potential was visible but not yet realized. Someone whose gift was undeniable, but whose moment had not yet come. In that configuration, they were safe. They were relevant. They were the one who saw you, who understood you, who had your ear and could therefore shape your story. Their sense of their own position in the world was organized, at least in part, around being the person who was closest to you before you arrived. When you began to arrive, the story changed. Your rising was not a threat to their safety, not in any material way. You were not competing for the same things. You were not taking anything from them, but it was a threat to their identity. The role they had constructed around being adjacent to your potential required that your potential remain adjacent. Your actual arrival meant the story they told about themselves had to be rewritten, and rewriting is painful for someone who spent years carefully composing the original. They did not set out to harm you. They set out to protect a version of a story they needed to be true. And in that protection, they caused harm. Not maliciously, structurally. This is what I want you to release. Not for their sake, for yours. The weight you have been carrying that you have called self-doubt, that you have called inadequacy, that you have called evidence of your own limitation, was not grown from your own soil. It was planted. It was planted by someone who needed you to believe it, because your belief in it was what kept the arrangement in place. Every whisper of "Am I enough?" Every moment of watching an opportunity veer away and wondering what you did wrong. Every room that felt pre-cooled before you arrived. Every moment of unexplained resistance that made you work twice as hard for half the recognition. All of it was the product of a campaign you never knew was being run. You did not fail. You were managed, and I have dismantled the management. Now for what happens next. I will not give you vengeance, because vengeance is not what you need, and it is not what I have promised. What I am giving you is something that will produce in them a more lasting consequence than anything that vengeance could deliver. I am giving you your arrival, in full, undeniable, visible to every room they ever walked into ahead of you, visible to every person who heard their version of your story, visible to every space where the ceiling was managed. They will see it. They are already beginning to sense that something has changed in the arrangement, that the version of you they presented to the world is no longer matching the version the world is beginning to encounter. And what they will feel when your arrival becomes undeniable is not triumph and not defeat. It is something more specific than either of those. It is the feeling of someone who had a front row seat to something extraordinary and spent the entire performance looking the other way. Seller's remorse. The specific grief of someone who was positioned for your blessing but chose instead to position themselves against it. They had access. They had proximity. They had a seat at the table that was going to become the most celebrated table in the room. And they spent their time at that table quietly sanding down the legs. When the table rises anyway, the grief of having been the one who tried to sand it down is permanent. They will not confront you. They will not apologize. What they will do is watch. And in the watching there is already a justice that no human court could administer. The version of you they contained will no longer be the version the world sees. The story they told about you will be replaced, not by your argument, but by your presence. You do not have to say a word. You do not have to address the narrative they built. Your arrival will address it for you. Psalm 126:5-6 says, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. Every tear you sowed in faithfulness. Every moment you showed up and kept going when the weight of managed ceilings pressed down on your progress. Every season of silent faithfulness in the dark. This is the harvest. Type, my breakthrough is already here. Say it like you know it is done, my daughter." There is someone in your life who is also standing at the very edge of their own breakthrough, and they do not yet know how close they are. Someone who has been pressing against the same invisible resistance. Someone who has felt the same strange exhaustion that is growth disguised as depletion. Someone who has been praying the same prayer for long enough that the prayer has worn grooves into their kneeling. If you want to sow a seed on their behalf, in honor of what I am about to do in both your lives, visit the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen. What you plant in faith for someone else, I return to your own hands multiplied. You are not diminished by what you give in my name. You are positioned for what I am about to give back. This is how my kingdom moves. This is how the harvest accelerates. You receive. You sow. The cycle continues. Not as transaction, but as declaration, as the act of a faith that is big enough to bless someone else, even while standing in its own season of need. My daughter, I have 3 things to announce to you, not promises of what might come if you remain faithful. Not conditions that require further performance on your part, announcements, declarations, things that are already in motion in the spirit realm and are moving toward you with the same inevitability as sunrise. You do not make the sun rise by believing in it hard enough. The sun rises because it is what the sun does. These 3 things are moving toward you because I have set them in motion, and I do not take back what I have put in motion. The first is financial. The doors that have been standing at an angle in your life, the ones that have been almost open, almost accessible, almost within reach for what feels like longer than it should have taken, are swinging fully open, not inching, not cracking, swinging. The opportunities that materialized close and then veered away at the last moment, the ones that left you wondering why, the ones that made you go back and examine yourself for what you might have done differently. They were not denied because you were lacking. They were delayed because the fullness of what I am releasing required all its components to arrive together. I do not send half a harvest. I send a harvest. What is coming is not the slow accumulation of small improvements. It is not a gradual uptick that you will notice over months, and then look back on later and realize was a shift. It is the opening of a gate, one movement, all at once. The image I want you to hold is not a dripping faucet finally turned to a trickle. The image is a dam releasing. When a dam holds water for years and then releases, the water does not emerge slowly and politely. It comes with the accumulated pressure of every year it was held back. It comes with a force proportionate not to the size of the opening, but to the volume of what was stored. Every year of faithfulness was water behind that dam. Every prayer, every sacrifice made in obedience, every act of generosity you extended when your own account was not comfortable, every moment of trust in provision when provision was not visible. It was all collecting behind the structure that was holding it. The structure is releasing, not because it cracked, because I opened it, because the season I was waiting for is here, and the volume of what is coming is proportionate to the volume of everything you stored in faithfulness during the seasons that looked like nothing was moving. What you sowed in silence is returning, not in proportion, not in matching measure, in the way that I return things, which is with the weight of heaven behind the repayment. I am not a God who breaks even. I am a God who returns with abundance, with overflow, with a generosity that makes what was withheld look small by comparison. Habakkuk 2-3 says, "For the vision awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." The appointed time is not a metaphor. It is a moment, and the moment is upon you. The second is emotional healing. Not the kind that comes from time alone, from simply moving far enough from the wound that it stops being the first thing you feel in the morning. Not distance. Actual healing. A peace that does not depend on your circumstances having improved. Not the absence of difficulty, but an interior stillness. A settled quality in the center of your being that you have not felt in years. Perhaps that you have never felt in the form in which it is coming. I want to be specific about what I mean, because I think healing has been described to you in ways that made it sound like something that would arrive with a dramatic moment of breakthrough, or a clear before and after line. Sometimes it does. But what I am giving you is something quieter and more thorough than a dramatic moment. It is a reorientation of your interior. It is your nervous system learning slowly, and then all at once, that the threat that shaped so much of your emotional posture is no longer present. It is the gradual discovery that you are not bracing for something, that you are not waiting for the other shoe to drop, that the vigilance you have been maintaining, the quiet readiness for things to go wrong that you did not even notice had become your baseline, is no longer necessary. The wounds you smiled through because smiling was what the situation required, the pain you held quietly so that others would not worry, so that the room would not become about you, so that you would not be perceived as someone who could not carry their own weight, the grief you folded neatly and stored where no one could find it, including sometimes yourself. The accumulated weight of years of being the one who holds things together while privately wondering who was holding you. All of it is being lifted, not because you finally found the right therapeutic framework, or the right conversation, or the right book. Because I am doing what only I can do, which is reach into the places that human care cannot access, and give your heart back its original weight, which is lighter than anything you have been carrying. So much lighter that when it happens you will wonder how you carried the previous weight at all. You will look back at the person who moved through each day bearing all of that, and you will feel a tenderness toward her, a respect for what she carried without collapsing, a recognition of how much strength was required to move through years of that weight with grace, with integrity, with faith still intact at the center, and a relief so profound it will feel like being set down after years of standing. Like discovering that the thing you had been gripping with white knuckles for so long, the thing you were afraid would fall if you released it, had been held from the other side all along, and you can let go now. I have it. I have always had it. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." All things, including the years that felt like nothing, including the seasons that seemed to produce only endurance. including the relationships that took more than they gave. All of it working together. For this, for you, for what I am now releasing into your life. The third is connection. Not just any connection. The specific divine connection that your spirit has been waiting for, without fully being able to name what it was waiting for. Someone whose spirit already knows yours. The way certain songs feel like memories of things that never happened, and yet feel more real than most things that did. Not a test, because I do not dress tests in the clothing of blessings and call them gifts. Not a repetition of the pattern that hurt you, not the same wound in a new face with new vocabulary. I want to be very clear about what this connection is not, because I know you have been guarded. Rightfully, the previous patterns earned that guarding. The people who presented themselves as safe and turned out to be another form of the same test. The connections that started with warmth and revealed themselves over time as something that required management. The relationships that asked you to be slightly less than yourself, to keep the peace. That took your authenticity as something to be handled rather than something to be celebrated. You have been through enough of that. Your God is not something I want to dismantle. Your discernment is not your enemy. What I am sending will not require you to override your discernment to accept it. It will not arrive asking you to suppress the quiet voice in you that knows when something is off. It will arrive, and the quiet voice in you will go still, not because it has been overridden, because there is nothing wrong to detect. Someone entirely different from what has come before. Someone who does not dim when they enter a space where your light is visible. Someone who does not calculate what your rising costs them because their own security does not depend on your limitations. Someone whose own strength is genuine enough that they are not threatened by yours. Someone who was being shaped in a parallel season, whose own growth and whose own pruning and whose own quiet seasons of faithfulness were running alongside yours in a timeline you could not see, being prepared for the moment when your paths would converge. They were not standing still waiting for you. They were becoming just as you were becoming, and the becoming is nearly complete on both sides. The connection is already written. It is already moving. It is already being drawn toward you by the same force that draws rivers to the sea, the quiet and inevitable pull of things that were made for each other, finding their way home. You will recognize it not because it is dramatic, not because it announces itself with the fanfare of things you were trained to want. You will recognize it because it will feel, on some level you cannot fully articulate. Like remembering, like meeting someone you already knew. Like resuming a conversation that was interrupted, rather than beginning one that is new. And in that recognition, there will be a stillness, a sense of arriving somewhere rather than departing from something. A coming home to a place you did not know you had been building toward. These three are not coming someday. They are already in motion. You are not waiting for them to begin. You are stepping into what has already begun, my daughter. Send this to 3 people. Not one, not some, 3. Someone who is standing at the edge of their breakthrough and does not yet know how close they are. Someone who has been carrying the kind of tiredness that is actually growth in disguise. Someone who has been pressing against a wall built by someone else and has been blaming the wall on their own inadequacy. Send this to them now. Do not decide whether they will receive it. Do not evaluate whether this is the right moment. I am the one who decides what is the right moment, and I am sending you to them in this one. They need to hear that the red alert is not a warning. They need to hear that what is coming will fit. Send it. Let them know I see them too. My daughter, I want to close with something that I need you to carry forward from this moment, an image. A truth wrapped in something simple enough to hold on the days when everything else feels complicated. What is coming to you? The financial opening, the emotional healing, the divine connection, the full arrival of everything that has been in motion through every season you endured. It will not require you to force it. That is the first thing I need you to understand. Everything in your life up to this point that required extraordinary effort just to maintain the relationships you had to work to keep at temperatures they should have held naturally. The opportunities you had to campaign for that should have recognized you without the campaign. The spaces you had to shrink yourself to fit. Those things required force, because they were not made for you. What is made for you will not require force. What is coming will fit the way a key fits a lock. I want you to hold that image, a key and a lock. Think about what happens in the moment of a correct key entering a correct lock. There is no grinding, there is no resistance. There is no forcing or negotiating or persuading the mechanism to yield. The key enters and the lock knows it immediately. The tumblers move the way they were always going to move when the right key arrived, not because the key performed or proved itself or earned the lock's cooperation, simply because it is the right key, because it was made for this lock, and this lock was made for it. And when things that were made for each other finally find each other, recognition is not a decision. It is a fact. It does not require evaluation or deliberation or a pros and cons list. It simply is what it is, and what it is right. I want you to think about every key you have tried to press into spaces that were not made for it, every relationship that required constant adjustment, every opportunity that required you to compress yourself to fit through a door that was sized for someone else, every room you entered that required you to leave part of yourself outside, every connection you worked to maintain by managing the friction, smoothing the edges, filling in the gaps with extra effort that should not have been needed in the first place. Think about the energy that took. Think about the person you had to be in those spaces. Think about how much of yourself you parceled out in careful portions, how much you monitored and adjusted and calibrated. What is made for you will not need any of that. The door it comes through will be sized for you at your full height, not the version of you that fits the current ceiling, the version of you that is being revealed as the ceiling releases. And walking through that door will feel nothing like any door you have walked through before. It will feel like the difference between arriving and returning, like the difference between achieving something and inhabiting something, like the difference between a performance and a presence. What is coming will fit with precision, with ease, with the quiet certainty of something that was always what the door was made for. You will know it is right, not because it is loud or dramatic, or because it overwhelms you with its insistence. You will know it because it will feel like remembering, like returning to something you always knew and somehow lost the address of for a season. Like the feeling of setting down a weight you carried so long you stopped noticing it was heavy, and in the setting down finally feeling the original lightness of your own hands. You will not have to explain your worth to what I am bringing to you. You will not have to campaign for it. You will not have to manage its perception of you or carefully present the right version of yourself to keep it interested. It will simply recognize you, the way a lock recognizes a key, the way morning recognizes the sun, with the silent, absolute certainty of things that were made for each other. The person who tried to manage how others saw your potential will watch this from outside what they tried to prevent, and the grief they feel will not require your attention, your sympathy, or your acknowledgement. You are not responsible for the feeling of someone who had a front row seat to what I was doing and chose to look away. That is their experience to carry. Yours is the arrival. Yours is the door swinging open. Yours is the key turning in the lock with that quiet, unmistakable click of everything being exactly as it was always supposed to be. Type it loud enough for heaven to hear. Type it like the breakthrough has already arrived. My daughter, the name that has been spoken against in rooms you were not in, the blessing that has been pressed back season after season. The door that stood at an angle for what felt like longer than faith should have to hold. The prayer that you have prayed so many times that you began to wonder if the words were reaching anywhere, if there was anyone on the other side of them, if your voice was carrying past the ceiling or stopping there. The expectation that was formed in you by me, not by you. The knowing in your spirit that more was coming. That you were made for more, that the life you have been living was the preparation and not the destination. That expectation was never an illusion. It was a preview. It was the first signal of an arrival that has been building toward this moment through every season of your life. I see all of it, every moment of faithfulness in the dark when no one was watching. And no one would have known the difference if you had stepped back from what you believed. Every morning you chose to believe again when belief was the harder choice. And the evidence around you suggested the easier choice was to let go. Every time you kept your integrity when compromise would have been so much easier and would have cost you so much less in the short term. Every prayer you prayed through tears, the ones that started as language and dissolved into something wordless, because the words were not enough anymore. Every seed you sowed in a season when your own soil was dry. I see it, I recorded it, and I am now moving it. If the weight of a long wait is on your heart right now, if the accumulated years of almost are pressing on you in this moment, sow a seed not as payment, but as declaration, as an act of faith that says, I believe it is already in motion. I believe the key has already been cut. I believe the door is swinging open, and I do not have to force what was made for me. Visit the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen. And as you do, say this, my timing is divine. My blessing fits. I am ready. They needed to press against me to know what I was made of. And what I am made of is exactly what gets through every wall. Exactly what arrives at every destination. Exactly what the door was built for. You are not waiting for your breakthrough anymore. Your breakthrough is waiting for you to recognize it has already arrived. I love you, my daughter. The red alert is not a warning. It is an announcement. Your breakthrough is not coming. It is already here. Go. I am not waiting for my breakthrough. My breakthrough is already moving. What was blocked is being unblocked. What was delayed is now accelerating. I do not need to force what was made for me. It will fit, and I am ready.